Good afternoon, everyone. Before we start, I want to say thank you so much. 60,000 subscribers and 13.3 million views on this channel. For all of you to get a better idea of how our lives are going to be changing over these next few years. As the climate cools, our crop yields are reduced and food prices skyrocket. And there will be a lot of interference in the media trying to persuade you that everything is still okay, except for CO2's warming the planet. Scientists surprised to find Arctic soil may not be freezing at all even in winter, but they only have this picture that says, extract air samples from frozen soil to accompany with the article. So they don't even have the soil samples supposedly that are unfrozen for the article. The reason it's unfrozen, unusually large amount of snow in the region this past winter is to blame. It trapped the heat of all things. And what's causing this runaway? Well, sea ice is evaporating. Sorry, writers of the article, ice is a solid, can't evaporate. So I thought to take a look at their claims. Thermal state permafrost in Russia, top right, a place called Chersky, at 72 degrees north latitude. And looking at melt temperatures across the Arctic this year, that red line is below the 1958 to 2002 average, which means it's cooler than the 45-year average. And as these crop losses take hold at the end of the year, you are absolutely going to have to start thinking about growing some of your own food. Adapt 2030 link for trueleafmarket.com is in the description box below, as well as the links to tonight's images and stories. And as we move forward into the cooling of our Earth affecting crop yields, the media is going to try to distract you in any way, shape, form, and fashion that they can. The first thing they're going to do is continue to push this CO2 warming narrative until so many people no longer question it that the IPCC will change its annual report, which it's doing now, to reflect some cooling. Interesting how the IPCC is flipping in its working paper to start talking about cooling. Unbelievable. But here's an example of what I'm talking about in the media distractions coming forward. Scientists surprised some Arctic soil may not be freezing in winter at all. So when I see that headline, scientists surprised, I'm thinking hundreds, thousands, all kind of universities. Just like when we hear investors in the stock market today, or you're thinking hundreds, thousands. But then in the article, they talk about melting permafrost, but the photo that goes with it, extract air samples from the frozen soil. In 2010. Okay, where's the 2018 pictures of the melting permafrost that you reference in the article? That would be my first question. Secondly, these scientists that are so surprised to find it, again, I'm thinking at least hundreds and research institutes and universities together. Oh, it's a father and son scientist team. 2 people. 200 miles north of the Arctic Circle. And then the article goes on to say that although the Arctic's been warming for years, here's the twist in the story. Unusually large amounts of snow in the region this past winter are to blame, acting as an insulator trapping heat. Okay, so the snow's now responsible for the warm. You see how it's going? And then the very next small paragraph, the odd thing is global warming could be causing the higher levels of snowfall. And remember our best friend Al Gore, who told us that your children will never know what snow is. I wonder if they're going to be communicating on the message they're putting out here. But speaking of snow, let's take a look at Greenland. Ice coverage, right side where that big yellow circle is that I put in there. The blue line, that's how much above the baseline average it is. That gray line in the middle, that's the average from 1981 to 2010. 30 years of satellite data and temperature measurements that they just guarantee you that global warming is caused by CO2, yet we have so much more snow and ice forming on Greenland. How is that? It's got to be from all this global warming creating more snow, huh? But you're not hearing about the gains in Greenland. You know, you've been told again it's melting, but here is what's up from September 1st of last year, 2017, all the way until today, through almost the entire melt season. And I see very little red in this image, meaning gains are the blue. And what are they not telling you in the media? How is Greenland gaining all this ice? And speaking of ice, the genius who wrote this article, Robert Ferris, one hypothesis is that the warming in the Arctic could be contributing to more evaporation from sea ice. Okay, come on. Really? Ice is a solid. It does not evaporate. This is the most basic of the basic 4th grade chemistry classes. Even earlier, probably. 2nd grade, you learn that ice is a solid. And see, I don't know how a major publication like CNBC could miss such a simple thing in science. Really, truly, it's mind-boggling. But staying on the ice, let's stay right into the sea ice. This is the thickness. Now, I want you to take a look at the left, 2017, compared to the right in 2018. Now, the water's cooler in the Atlantic that's being pushed under the Arctic for this next 9-year cycle. So you can see how the thickness is now starting to increase due to cooler water under the ice. This is a natural cycle off the Atlantic Ocean. So we would expect to be thicker ice in the beginning, and then next year we'll expect not only thicker ice, but the periphery edges of that should also start to grow. And see, this is where they're going to have a very difficult time trying to flip the narrative when the Arctic ice is growing, Greenland ice is growing. I have it on good authority of people who have already read part of the working paper that they're moving over to start talking about cooling in the new IPCC report that's going to be released. That's all part of it. Because too many people are going to start to question, like, hey, this CO2 thing you've been feeding us is not adding up any longer. What's going on? There's going to be a lot of questions asked, and there's going to be a lot of demand for inquiry into the funding of these institutions to be cut, and also for some of these people to be fired, or at least closure of different agencies across the planet that are responsible for giving us such warming details. Continuing on the article, some of the ground in the Arctic is typically frozen most of the year round, but there's new evidence. I would like to see it because you didn't show it in any of this article that you presented here. Some of it may not be freezing at all. If confirmed, scientists say, remember, so I think it's those two guys over in the back. And I thought, all right, I got to do a little research on this. Took me 2 minutes to find this PDF here. Thermal state of permafrost in Russia. They even go into the exact same area that these guys are in. And this is the most interesting thing. It's called Chersky, and it's in the northeastern part of Russia, above the Kamchatka Peninsula in northern Yakutia, where we keep seeing again and again and again early snows, record cold temperatures, etc., that the news doesn't want to cover. But a few thousand miles to the west in Norway, a couple degrees over the normal baseline, a new record heat temperature, and the news was all over it for 2 weeks, but they forgot all the record cold in the other parts of Russia during that same exact time. So Chersky is your mark. It's even in a box. That's the exact same region that they studied that this CNBC article is referencing. Now that's incredible, because when we look at today's temperatures, that red line is the temperature for the entire summer melt season. That green line that's riding above it, that's the average temperature from 1958 to 2002. Almost the entire summer this year has been below normal average temperatures across the Arctic, from 80 degrees north all the way to the circle, as well as a little bit further down, 73 degrees north up to the Arctic. Now, glimpsing in at today's temperatures, now I put the North Pole right at the center there. All that blue that you see is at least freezing or below freezing. And there is a lot going on today with the forecast coming out for the winter of 2017-18 to be much cooler, bringing us back into the 1970s types of winters. So I'm wondering if the permafrost at these lower layers is going to continue to stay frozen, because what we're getting in the media and what's happening on the ground with the temperatures were just two entirely different sets of information. And I absolutely encourage you to continue to do some of your own information, find the facts, find what's happening right now, because moving forward, it's going to be your responsibility to make your own wise, informed choices based on the information you have at your fingertips. Whatever the information is, both sides of the argument, you need to take both of those into consideration as we trek down into 2021. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. The media is going to continue to push the CO2 warming as we continue to cool into the grand solar minimum. They don't want to be culpable for all the knowledge that they had of these natural cycles through the last 30 years, pushing exclusively CO2 warming to continue to generate funding. They've wasted valuable time in getting our world ready for these changes, and they still continue to this day as a propaganda machine pushing this CO2 myth. And I mean, if it's this easy to find a PDF that says something different with the findings of these scientists, and they don't even show you any proof whatsoever in this article that they found what they say they found. We should be questioning this every single time. And I'm also backing up the channel on BitChute, Adapt 2030.